Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here at CPA Academy. Very excited to have Marjorie over at Fourlane back. I'll be handing it over in just one moment. Before I do, we're going to do a few housekeeping items. We'll make sure that everything is working for you, that the slides are showing up on your screen, that you can hear the audio. I'll let you know about the handout, and of course, we'll let you know about your CPE. So let's get started. We're not drawing your attention to that GoToWebinar control panel. Many people are already typing in that question pane, so if you hadn't already, please say hello. Let us know what brings you here today. What's your familiarity with Acumatica? Let me know that the audio is working. If you have any questions for Marjorie during the session, the question pane is the perfect place to go to ask questions. If she has time, she'll do her best to answer questions, but we'll also be sending her a full report later today with all your questions, so please ask away. You also see a handout pane. We made that handout available in your account at cpaacademy.org. It was also sent to you in the reminder emails. There's a link for it there. So if you hadn't downloaded it already, you can click that PDF link, download, and follow along. Let's see here. I also want to remind everybody about our LinkedIn page. I'm going to post a little link there for you. We encourage you to follow along with us on LinkedIn. It's a great place to learn about upcoming sessions like this one. We also have various promotions, and you can learn about our presenters. So please follow along with us on LinkedIn. So this course is a 1-hour course. It's eligible for 1 CPE. In order to get that credit, you need to do 2 things: attend this whole session and answer the polling questions. Marjorie's going to launch those polls periodically. It'll pop up on your screen. You just need to select the radio button that best fits your answer, submit, and you are good to go. We'll do our best to get your CPE processed a little later today. You should see it in your account by tomorrow. We will also be recording the session, and we will make that link available to you in the post-webinar email. So let's check in with our audience as I see my screen filling up here. We have Pennsylvania, we have Dallas, North Carolina, we've got Houston here, Cindy in Colorado Springs, Judy in Austin, Texas, New York, Alabama. Perfect. Looks like things are working well. So that is my cue to step aside. Marjorie, thank you so much for being here today. Our audience is ready, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks to CPA Academy for hosting us today. I am so excited to be talking about Acumatica today. It's going to be an interesting course. I love, talking about stretching outside of QuickBooks for sure. So I did an Acumatica webinar last year around this time. It's been a year since we've been doing it. Learning a lot over the year because it is kind of newer at our practice here. We've only been representing the product for a couple of years. We had been a QuickBooks only shop for 9 years and then decided to branch out and add another software 3 years ago. We did a handful of implementations of Acumatica in our first year as a partner, which handful in the QuickBooks space seems very small, but in the ERP space was a lot to manage. And we just wanted to share with you our top reasons that we saw our customers make the jump from Acumatica to QuickBooks, because most of our customers are coming from the QuickBooks space. Now, QuickBooks is, of course, an amazing product, and we still have tons of customers in the QuickBooks space, and it has a lot of apps that connect to extend the product or enhance the product. However, there are certain features that are just not well covered in that space. And that's what we're going to be discussing today. So apps don't really exist for these things. And so when customers really need these, we're looking at extending up into Acumatica. I hope your takeaway is an understanding of what could be for some of your customers or for your business. I always strive to provide a solution to my clients, even if that solution is, well, it might be time to look at bumping up into an ERP and moving out of the safe space that you've been in for the last, since your company started, getting away from QuickBooks. All right. So I'm Marjorie Adams. I own and operate the consulting firm Fourlane. I'm personally located outside of Austin, Texas. I saw a couple of Austinites checking in earlier. I'm a transplant, one of those, we say that down here, I'm one of those transplants from the San Francisco Bay Area down here to Austin. Fourlane, however, is a 100% remote firm with about 40 employees across several states. We've been Intuit's #1 solution provider since 2010, which means we see a lot of QuickBooks Enterprise clients, and that's really been our niche from day one. The majority of customers that we hear leaving the QuickBooks Enterprise space, whether it's to Acumatica or somewhere else, is because of transaction count. Their volume is too high. That's an easy one. But we've also seen a trend of people wanting to do far less manually and have more automations, right? And AI and all those terms. And that's really been our specialty. Although we help people push QuickBooks to its absolute limits, sometimes it's just time to move up market. So my passion in this work is to make a difference in the success of a business and in the daily life of the staff of that business. That's why I do this. All right, so we're going to go ahead and launch our first poll. Which software do you feel the most comfortable using? So if you can provide some feedback there, it gives me an idea. I don't see very often where QuickBooks Desktop is winning above QuickBooks Online, so that's exciting because I'm definitely one of those desktop people. And we have some who feel confident and comfortable in desktop ERP software. We'll give you guys a couple of minutes to fill in here. What I've learned over the last couple of years too is that a lot of, even outside of Acumatica and other ERP products, I've heard anywhere between 60 to 80% of their customer base comes from QuickBooks at some point, right? So it's the entry place for a lot of businesses before they decide to move up into an ERP product. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results there so you guys can all see. Looks like we have a lot of desktop people out there, which is amazing. About a quarter of us are QuickBooks Online and then spread out between ERP Online and ERP Desktop. So good to see it. All right, so we'll go ahead and continue. Okay, next I'm going to go through a little bit about Acumatica. All right, I'm going to start in the slide deck here, but then I'm going to go in product, but I just want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up here on background on Acumatica. So from a high level, I want to give you a sense of why we chose this product as the next step. So why we chose this one over, the Intax or the Sages or anything else out there. So Acumatica was born in the cloud over a decade ago. It is unlike some products that started as a desktop product, right? And then they tried to create a cloud product that is as good as their desktop product, while, by the way, still trying to maintain the desktop product and all the clients that are in that desktop product. What's special about Acumatica is that their sole focus is on their cloud product, which of course means better, faster improvements. Another huge difference is that they're 100% partner-based. So of course my clients say, well, that's great for you, but why is that great for me? So other companies in this space, NetSuite, Sages, even QuickBooks, they have a direct sales channel, and managing a sales team is entirely different than managing a support and R&D team. Acumatica does not have that sales team that they need to manage, and they instead focus solely on product. And this is how they've been able to grow so quickly to have top user interface and top functionality. Other software brands, they have up to 80% of their staff in marketing and sales, which leaves little room for developers. And Acumatica is the complete opposite. So again, that's how they've been able to move so quickly with their product and their functionalities, which is awesome. One of the biggest reasons we chose Acumatica as a product to represent was the fact that they're a true cloud or SaaS product. However, you have options, which you don't always get in other ERP SaaS products. So you can choose the SaaS option, which is hosted in Amazon Web Services. This is what 99% of our customers choose, but they like to know that you can do these other two things as well. So you can host it in a licensed data center through a hosting provider. You can also host it locally and not have it be accessible through the internet at all. Again, not very many people choose this, but knowing that that's an option helps them feel protected when they're moving into the cloud space from a desktop product. Now next over here, Acumatica's focus in licensing is to make it so that we are not cost prohibiting businesses from opening the software up to people that need to put in data or need to retrieve data. I can't even go into the pricing, how it works. It can get pretty elaborate. However, they have several pricing options, which is nice. And some of them, right, one of them's unlimited transactions. One of them includes a 5-user package for $3,000 per year, not per user, but per year for 5 users. Or there's even unlimited users. The flexibility is structured to the business needs to promote better success without breaking the bank, basically. And so that's very helpful when you're transitioning away from QuickBooks. Okay. Now, I know that a lot of people think ERP and they assume high price points. Acumatica's base financial model is about the same price as QuickBooks Enterprise hosted. And of course, Acumatica's includes hosting in their base price. And just like you have the option to add apps in QuickBooks, you can add modules or apps in the Acumatica space. The software price comparison for most of our clients has been pretty equal when we've moved them up. Acumatica has a base price for the AR, AP, Cash, GL modules. And then you can pick and choose these modules as add-ons. These are just some examples. These are all built-in product. These aren't apps. These are not additional. These are just modules that you can add to your base advanced financials module. Okay. Now again, a lot of people see this and they go, oh, how much is this going to cost me? But to add something like intercompany accounting, which we're going to talk about today, you can add it for under $5,000 a year for unlimited users if you have the unlimited users package. Or CRM, you can add for under $5,000 a year for unlimited users if you have the unlimited users package. So it really isn't as cost prohibitive as what people think. So it's worth investigating, basically. Okay. Our first Acumatica client is a customer we do full outsourced accounting for. They have project accounting and contracts added to their license, and they pay under $2,000 per month for the SaaS version of the software. So again, it's not that far outside of what we expect, even in the QuickBooks space for pricing. Okay, I did want to just show this quickly, the Nucleus Research results. So you can see Acumatica up here. The greater usability, it's at the top of the chart when it comes to usability, which again, that's so important when you're leaving QuickBooks, because QuickBooks is so user-friendly. You know, it's so easy to use. Everybody enjoys the user interface. And when you're transitioning into the ERP space, very important. Then it also has better functionality, right, than some of its counterparts that you would expect it to be closer to, so like the NetSuites or the Sage Intacct. And it's pushing forward into being competitive with some of the softwares that can cost, you know, 50 to 100 times the price point of Acumatica. So it's pretty awesome. Okay, before I progress here, we're going to go ahead and do poll number 2. So what is your main interest in learning more about Acumatica? I saw some people answer this in the questions a minute ago, but I wanted to get some feedback. All right, so understanding the difference to QuickBooks, you know, we have, you know, for me especially, the reason I went down this pathway originally was I had clients coming to me who wanted to continue to use our services, but they knew that they needed a different product. Okay, so understanding is important. Investigating online ERP solutions for your company or client. So maybe you're in that same boat I was in. Learning cool technology. It's always important. Stay in front of technology. And then, of course, deciding if you want to be a partner. Your partner program is great. Or an implementer. So give it a couple more seconds here. And I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results. So it looks like a lot of people wanting to understand the difference. A lot of people wanting to learn some cool technology today. So I'm definitely looking forward to show that. All right. And we'll go ahead and hide. Okay. So moving along here. So our webinar topics today, we're going to be talking about multi-tenancy and intercompany first. We're going to go into approvals second, talk about automations third, and then security and close. That's probably going to be the shortest little bit, but it's still exciting to see. So our learning objectives today, we want to describe 3 features of Acumatica that are not available with QuickBooks. So intercompany accounting, approvals, and automations. And then secondly, understand the company, branch, and multi-tenant features available in Acumatica. All right, let's dive in. So our first feature we're going to cover is multi-tenancy and intercompany transactions. Before we jump into how this works, I want to talk about what are these things. So multi-tenancy is the way a software is structured where multiple independent instances of one or multiple applications operate in a shared environment. And we're going to look at what this means in Acumatica here in a second. So these could be completely separate entities that do not share any like data. In each tenant, they can have a parent-to-child relationship where the parent data can be shared with those child files. This allows for things like a singular centralized chart of accounts, or maybe a singular vendor list or user functionality that is shared across multiple companies or branches, etc. In the QuickBooks space, we can have completely separate company files in QuickBooks Enterprise or in QuickBooks Online even. In QuickBooks Online, you have to buy multiple licenses. In QuickBooks Desktop, you can have as many company files as you want under one license. However, managing data and user access across multiple company files takes going into each file individually to make changes. We frequently have people request shared vendor information, shared item information, possibly chart of accounts data, shared user security across multiple company files. And that can be very time consuming in QuickBooks. The second part that we're going to be discussing today in this topic is intercompany accounting. This is the process of recording financial transactions between different companies within one company. A lot of times this happens at the parent company or management company level, if you've heard those terms. However, we have lots of customers that have one company and they're setting up a second one, and that second one just isn't making money yet, not revenue producing. And so the first company is paying all that second company's bills. In QuickBooks, these are generally run through an intercompany account set up as other current assets or other current liabilities. You have to post the transaction in the original company file, then open up the secondary file and post them there as well. There is not any cross-company reconciliation app available out there that I know of. There is, I've heard, an intercompany app out there, but I've never seen it successfully in use before. Now here at Fourlane, of course, because we do custom applications, we have built things like this for customers on top of QuickBooks before. We had a residential property company that had well over 90 QuickBooks files with intercompany transactions in each file, and we built them a custom application to run intercompany reconciliations between all the different files. But that was custom, right? There wasn't an app out there that did this. So it's a gap. Any developers out there? Okay, to better understand the different unique options available when moving to Acumatica, I wanted to show this chart. So we have Tenant Access, which would be separate company files that have distinct data and possibly different versions of Acumatica. So maybe a manufacturing version and then a field service version or something. We also have companies that can have, or companies, and they can have shared data, consolidated reporting. They can have separate tax ID numbers, but maintain separate, and also maintain separate files and ledgers. This is the first level where we can have intercompany transactions happening at the company level here. Then we have branches. So these can be different DBAs. Locations can have different distinct tax ID numbers also, but they don't have to. These operate in the same file, but are separated through permissions possibly. You can limit people to only be able to see certain data in their branch. And then finally, we have ledgers. So you can have multiple ledgers within one company or branch, which allows for like a budget ledger, a tax ledger, a statistical ledger, things like that. Okay, So now that we've looked at the different options taking us from multi-tenancy down to the single GL, let's look at how these work. So I'm going to flip into Acumatica. Yay. So in this version that I'm showing right now, I actually have this hosted through a licensed hosting server company, Skyline. So that's what you're looking at today. So this is not hosted on AWS, not hosted locally. It's hosted through one of our hosting partners that we work with. So first of all, this far drop down over here, you can see all the different tenants that I have access to. So these are distinct, separate versions of Acumatica loaded in the same area. So I've got the core demo, which is just the base model. I've got the manufacturing edition, the field service management edition. Okay. Next here under revision 2 products, you can see I have 3 companies, capital, products, and services. And then within each company, I have branches, so retail, wholesale, west, east. If I select one branch here, so I'm selected onto products retail, now I can come in and see which ledgers I have available. So you can see that I have different ledgers. Oops, oh, great, it logged me out. All right, let me try again. I love it on demos, right? I've been doing this all morning. Get logged back in. So you can see the different ledgers that we have available. So I have an actual ledger, budget ledger, EU consolidation ledger, reporting ledger, and a statistical ledger set up in just this one branch. Okay. All right, moving to intercompany accounting, I'm going to look at the inter-branch account mapping that you have set up in here. The search feature is great. The search searches across, functionality as far as, what you can do in the file menu, items, transactions, help articles, files. So it's very, very helpful, the search button up top here. And it's quick, right? So inter-branch mapping, so this is where we go set up. If we're going to do intercompany accounting, this is where we go set it up. So if I take a look, I'm just going to look at some existing data in here at the product retail account mapping. So what it's saying is, what is the originating branch that you expect? So product retail, which is my branch here. What posting ledger are we talking about dealing with? So I choose that. Then down here, I'm saying, okay, if the transaction is happening in product retail and it's an intercompany transaction, where am I posting it to? Okay, so I have my product wholesale. If it's intercompany to product wholesale, I can post it to any account between account 0 to account 90,000. So basically any account on my chart of accounts. The offset account is going to be 1900, which would be a due to account or a due from account in the other current asset section. And then you can say what is the sub account offset here as well. Okay. Sub accounts in Acumatica are kind of similar to classes in QuickBooks, by the way. There's a lot of areas that are similar to classes in QuickBooks. Branches can be similar to classes, but so you have lots of options. But sub accounts are different in that you can have multiple layers of sub accounts. So like these first 3 can be department, the second 3 can be location, the third 3 can be product line, whatever you want to have, different buckets of data to splice your data. How this is similar to QuickBooks is that you can have this in a different table. A lot of times in other ERP softwares, when we do a lot of conversions from softwares to QuickBooks, and what we'll see is they'll send us their chart of accounts, and their chart of accounts is like thousands of pages long because every sub account is actually built into their chart of accounts. So we have, rent is account 6000. Then rent for department 1 is 6000-001, department 2 6000-002, and that chart of accounts grows really long. These sub accounts in Acumatica are maintained in a separate table, so your chart of accounts is just rent 6000, and then you run your whatever sub accounts, however you want to splice the data through here. So that makes it similar to QuickBooks because QuickBooks does the same thing, right? You have your chart of accounts, and then you have your class list, which is separate. Okay. All right, sorry, I got sidetracked there with that. So now we want to say here, so if the original transaction originates in the destination branch, then what happens in this branch, right? So it's saying can post to any account, and then the offset is going to be going to the due to, which is a 2600 or other current liability. Okay, now that we understand the mapping, let's go ahead and see this in action. So I'm going to go into payables here and enter a new bill. Now, when I go in and enter the bill, you can use tab, which we're used to doing in QuickBooks. You can use a space bar to check or uncheck things. So we're used to doing things like that in QuickBooks. Of course, we do have a date, transaction date, and then a posting period, which can be different. But I'm going to put in here my vendor reference number. I'm going to choose my AA vendor. And it's going to fill in some information here. So I'm just going to go down below, skip ahead, because I want to get down. So this first one, I'm actually in products wholesale right now. So this first one is going to, I'm going to say, okay, products wholesale. And the cost is going to be $5,000. Now I do have projects required. Turned on projects are similar to jobs, right? It's how we do job costing in Acumatica. So I do have that required. So I'm just going to put in Project X for now. So then on this bill for product wholesale, I'm also going to choose that we have some for product retail. So we're going to say we have, $3,000 for product retail to Project X. And I'm going to say I have some for Services West on here for, let's just say 4,500. Okay. So you guys get the idea. Whoops. Skip that X. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say save. Saving the transaction. I have it on hold right now, so it's kind of like a pre-posting state. There's all sorts of approvals things that can happen behind the scenes. So I take it off of hold. Everything's ready. It says pending approval. Now I'm logged in as the admin, so I can go ahead and approve it right now. And so it says it's balanced, and then I can release the transaction. So one of the things we're going to be talking about is some automation, so you don't have to go through all these steps necessarily. But that'll be next. Okay, just like in QuickBooks, in Acumatica, when I have a transaction posted, I have the financial details tab, okay? So up top you have the reporting tab in QuickBooks, and I have my batch. So I can look at what is happening. So this is my transaction journal. What is happening behind the scenes from this transaction that I just posted? So very similar to a QuickBooks-ish feel, very easy to navigate and get to this place. So what this is showing is it's saying, okay, accounts payable. I've got 12,125 accounts payable in product wholesale branch. I have $5,000 in expenses in my product wholesale branch, some kind of discount that we've got going on there. In product retail, I posted $3,000 to COGS. And Services West, I posted $4,500 to COGS. Then product wholesale due from has $7,500. I don't have it broken out, the due froms. They just all are going into one account. And then the due tos, right, on product retail and Service West are showing up there. So it takes care of all of that intercompany transactions all on the one transaction, and I don't have to go in there and balance anything. I don't have to go in there and make sure that everything's reconciled. It's all taken care of. Okay. All right. So for companies that use intercompany transactions, this is a game changer in simplifying their postings compared to QuickBooks. It's just hours of time that could be saved. Okay. All right, let me close out of this one, and I'm going to go right back in here. I'm going to look at some questions too real quick, just to make sure that I'm not missing anything before I hop back into my slide. So it says, Can your software deal with 5 foreign currencies? Yes, it does multi-currency just fine. It also does multi-language. Yeah, so there's all sorts of different things. Are you able to set up a default account, sub-account for the branch? Yeah, you can. So David, I'm not sure if you mean, so you can set up a default if you want to say like, I'm not sure if you mean the expense side or if you mean the due to, due from side, but yeah, on the intercompany match or interbranch accounting mapping, we can say which, right, account the offset is going to go towards there. Okay. All right. Okay. Let me go ahead and move forward here. So I'm going to go back to my slide deck. And next we're going to be talking about approvals. So approvals allow for a second set of eyes on a transaction or a document prior to it progressing from on hold to posted or to released, things like that. The most common requests I have heard in QuickBooks on approvals is for purchase order approval, right? So somebody submits a purchase order and they want it to be approved prior to the requisition actually going out to the vendor. Bill payment approval. So can this bill be paid? Do you approve? This is on your project. This is a bill for your project. Can this bill be paid? Expense claim approval or time card approval. So you can have time cards and expense claims run through Acumatica. Sales order or estimate approval. So if the estimate is above $10,000 as an example, then maybe it needs a manager's approval prior to it being allowed to be sent out. Okay. If you guys have any other approval requests, I'd love to hear them. If you have any other ones that your clients have asked you, because I love hearing what people ask for out there, right? You only have exposure to your world, so it's great to hear that. Okay, in Acumatica, you can have assignment maps and approval maps. So the assignment maps are saying who is responsible for different lists. As an example here at Fourlane, Intuit is a big vendor of ours and a partner, and I manage that relationship with Intuit directly. So at the vendor list level, I can be assigned as a person responsible for approving everything under this vendor. Another way you can think of the assignment mapping is for certain item categories. So maybe Rob on your team is responsible for replenishing wholesale parts. Alicia is responsible for approving all services, and Kaz responsible for all internal supplies and requests. Right, so you can assign based on item category, and we're going to look at this too. Item category, who is responsible for approving things related to these items. Next, we have approval mapping. So you can decide which documents or which transactions need approval and who will be approving them. And then you can have thresholds too. So, maybe it's for $1,000, if it's $1,000, it needs one person's approval. If it's $10,000, it needs two people's approvals, etc. So let me go ahead and flip back here into Acumatica. I'm going to type in maps here to look at my assignment and approval maps that I already have set up. So you can see some examples of ones that we have in here. So we have, project quote approval. So we need the quote to be approved prior to it being sent out. We have customer assignment by class. So they do use this term class in here as well. It's kind of how you segment your customer class. Customer assignment by region. So we'll take a look at this one. AP bills, right? Multi-line approval, pro forma invoice approval, project approvals, expense approvals, right? So time card approval. So a lot of the things that we have discussed already you can see in here. So let's take a look at one of the assignment maps. I'm going to do it by region. Now my purpose of showing this to you is the ease of use, right? Because you think about this, you go, oh, this setup, and it is a lot to set up. Let's not, moving into ERP is not going to be easy, but the ease of use once you know how to use it is exciting. So in here I have what's the map, right? What map am I using? What's the name? Down below I have rules, and those rules are just, you name the rule basically. I just named this rule, and I can delete it or I can move it up and down. If I look at the East region accounts, this is a rule I have already set up. I can choose my conditions. So what I'm choosing here is I'm saying, okay, here is the entity, and I can choose, right? Is it a customer? So based on the entity, am I looking at the customer? Am I looking at the address, the contact, the activities, the opportunities, cases? You can have case tracking in here without having CRM necessarily. Campaign, what campaign were they part of? So there's all these different ways that you can look at the customer information. So I'm choosing customer address, and in the customer address table, what field do I care about? I care about the state. And then if the state equals New York, they are considered East Region account, and then we go to the rule from there. So again, I'm saying address equals New York, right? Or New Jersey, or Florida, or blah, 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 blah. So if this is true, then do this rule. So assign ownership to the employee Steve Church if they fall under that category. So very simple if-then statements, right? Which makes part of that user interface. This makes it very easy to use. You don't have to know how to do a whole bunch of programming to understand how to set these up. If I go to the West Region accounts, I'm going to say, West regions get assigned to Cushing Williams if they're in California, Oregon, New Mexico, Nevada, etc. So very easy to use. Now this is just assignment mapping, right? This isn't approval processes right now, but it's allowing me to, when I set up a new customer, automatically have that customer fall into this particular person's accounts. Okay. All right. Next, let's take a look at approvals. So I'm going to look at the AP bill multi-line approval. So this is a couple of different approvals built in here, which is why I wanted to show it. Okay, so the first section here is saying AP approvals by department. So when I choose this, if no approver found, go to the next step. It says, what do you want to do, right? So I choose this. If I look at consulting expenses, my condition here is if the AP transaction, right? And it shows here when I choose my drop down. Previously, I saw things like, address, etc. Because I have entity types of bills and adjustments up here, now I'm seeing AP level transactions showing up down here. So if the AP transaction, right, uses the sub account of consulting as one of my 3 digits there, right, then Martin needs to approve this. So what do? Martin gets approval on it, and then I collect the approval and move to the next step. So then it would go over to the finance team. If this AP transaction had a line on it for the consulting expenses and then a second line on it for finance expenses, then it would first be approved by Martin, then it would go over to Layla, right? So I can build in these complexities if I needed it. Now this is at the line level on a transaction that you can have approvals, okay? We can have vendor specific approvals. So going back to my example of I own the Intuit relationship, I can come in here and say, okay, AA vendor is one of the vendors on our vendor list. So AA vendor, if the AP invoice says AA vendor, then Anna needs to approve it. Okay. Product class vendors, so you can assign them by classes, you can assign them by subcontractors, right? So this is just some different examples. Now this is also another area where you can decide, okay, if it bills over $1,000, it needs approval. If it's under $1,000, it doesn't. Or maybe if it's over $1,000, it needs 1. If it's over $5,000, it needs 2. We can build in those complexities. So again, where this separates itself from QuickBooks or QuickBooks add-ons, there are some great add-ons. Bill.com, right? Bill.com allows you to do approvals. There's one called DMS Workflow that allows you to do approvals with QuickBooks. It's an app add-on, but it's not all-encompassing where I could do it on the bill side and the sales side if I wanted to, right? Or I could do it on the posting to the GL side, or I could do it on the journal entry side. It's not all-encompassing when we're using those apps. T-Sheets, right? That's one Intuit just bought. Time card approval, awesome, wonderful, but it's only time card approval, not everywhere. Okay. All right. So again, let me take a quick peek at expenses here, or I'm sorry, at the questions here before I go on to show you this in practice. So let's see, we have, can you visit CRM with this application? So yes, they do have a CRM module. It does have a connection to Salesforce as well. I mean, you have to, right? So I'm not going to cover CRM today because usually, right, there are a lot of CRM add-ons that connect to QuickBooks too. Salesforce connects to QuickBooks through DB Sync or Audify or whatever you use out there. So there's options out there for things like that. What I'm covering today is what really there aren't great options to add on top of QuickBooks for these certain areas. But I'll definitely, Ray, can take it offline and show you the CRM. Can expense accounts be approved, routed directly to a supervisor? So yes. Expense account, I mean, I assume you mean expense submissions. So yes, they can be done by employee, right? So approval mapping can be done by employees assigned to a certain manager, and that manager approves those, absolutely. Also, the ways that you can do approvals, I kind of covered this later in my notes here, but ways you can do approvals, so you can do it in product here. You can do it through an app. There's an app where you can go in and log your approvals. You can do it email-based. You can have an email sent to you to do approvals. And then recently at the Acumatica Summit, we actually saw, last year I saw it, and I think they did it this year too, where they did voice approvals through, not that this isn't live yet, but they talked about it. They do voice approvals through Google Box or through Alexa. So that's, you know, coming to do voice approval even. So it's pretty cool stuff. So do you have a work order? So yes, there are work orders through here. It is full, it has a full field service management. And then also too, they just added, there's a whole bunch of press about it, but they just added a full field service management product in. So anyway, we're not demoing that today, but they do have work orders. Can you receive a payment against invoice lines? Jennifer, I'm gonna have to kind of see what you're asking about that. So I'll follow up with you on that after. Okay, for AP bills, can you scan documents into Acumatica? Yeah, so there's options for that. That would be an app though. They call them ISVs in the Acumatica space. But they do have apps for that, just like they do QuickBooks too. Okay, all right, so I know there's some more questions in there. Sorry, I'm just kind of skimming through real quick so I can answer them, but if I don't get to them on this call, I will definitely follow up with you after the fact. So I'm actually going to pull up Internet Explorer here so I can log in as a different user. I could log in as in an incognito tab in Chrome as well, but I thought I figured I could show that it works in Internet Explorer just fine, and it also really separates, right, what we're looking at here. So I'm logging in as Wiley, whereas in my other file here, I'm logged in as the admin, right? And hopefully I put in the right password here. No matter how many times you run through it ahead of time, right, it still is, did it once last week and once this morning, it still is going to give you a problem. So let's see. Try one more time to get it loaded here, and if it doesn't load, then I will just show it to you without logging in as Wiley, because I'm not sure what's happening there. Let's see. I'm not as skilled with with Internet Explorer as I am with Chrome. I'm just not used to using it. Okay, so let me see. So now it's asking me to log in again. Okay, so Wiley and sign in. All right, so when I log in, yay, thank you. When I log in, now I'm logged in as Regina Wiley, right? So different person entirely. So when I go to payables here and I enter a new bill, now Regina does not have permissions anywhere throughout the system to do any kind of approvals. Oh, come on now. So when I log in and enter a bill as Regina, I am going to enter it as soon as it pulls up here. Oh, the joys of doing live. Come on. maybe I might have to bypass this and, oh, there we go. Okay, so bill, I'm going to put in a reference number again here. I'm going to put in the vendor as AA vendor. Now remember that we had AA vendor was one of those permissions or one of those setups that we had that had a specific approver previously. I'm going to go ahead down here and add the information. So just do a quick one of, you know, $7,800, and of course put in my project that is required and say save. So again, I can save it. I have permissions to save it. Now when I take it off of hold here, it's going to change and say pending approval, right? And again, I can save it. Now if I go in and try to approve it, it's going to pop up a box and say, hey, you are not an authorized approver for this document. So it gives me that warning right away. On the document itself, I can also look at approval details to see who is responsible for approving it. So I've got two approvers, Anna, who was responsible for the AA vendor. And if we looked at it, Anna actually, if Anna approves it, it doesn't have to go any further. And then Eric, who might be somebody in operations that is probably responsible for anything over $1,000, right? So one of the two need to approve it is what we have set up in our approval processes. Now going back into, so I'm going to close out of Internet Explorer here. So going back, I can click into my time and expenses here and look at my approvals. So I just have all my tasks set up. So here are my approvals. Now I'm logged in as the admin, so my approvals isn't showing up here because I wasn't one of the approvers, but I can look at all records because I'm the admin and go through and approve if I need to. So here's that same bill showing that Anna and Eric need to approve it. I can drill down to the bill from here, open it up, come in and approve it. So one of the things, so I can approve it from here or reject it from here, okay? Or when I'm in that time and expenses tab, so I'm just gonna go ahead and approve this one so we can say there. I could have also selected all and said, you know, mass approve. So once I approve it, then it's gonna move from pending approval and allow for me to release. I wonder if I'm just having some speed issues. Great, approve. Network related instance occurred. Awesome, something must be going on with the server there. So I can also go into the approvals here and, like I said, mass select and mark it as approved. Okay. One of the things, so again, all right, I'm going to go ahead and move on because it's just showing me this little spinny bar. So one of the other things that is, so the next one that we're going to go into post approvals here is automations. So we're running tight on time, so I'm going to try and get through this one really quickly. So automations, so again, another hugely, hugely exciting concept when it comes to Acumatica, and very simple, right? That's what I want to show today is how simple it is to use this. So one of the biggest fears people have when they leave QuickBooks is how many steps it will take to do anything in an ERP system, right? So let's be real, it will take more time to manage, period, when you move into ERP. However, what Acumatica has done is created this idea of automations to eliminate some of those steps. So when I do a QuickBooks demo, somebody's like, oh, I'm in NetSuite and I want to switch to QuickBooks. I always talk about how if you make an error in a posted transaction, you have to void the batch, void the transaction, repost the transaction, repost the batch. You have all these different approvals along the way. It's very time consuming, right? And in QuickBooks, it's so nice and easy. If you need to edit a transaction, if you have the closing date password and the proper permissions, you can just go edit the transaction, right? Life's so easy. In Acumatica, we'll talk more about security next, about posting transactions and periods and stuff like that. But in Acumatica, a posted transaction is pretty much final. However, you can reclass transactions after they're posted. But what Acumatica does that has a more QuickBooks feel is that you can have the system use batch posting. So I have all my AR transactions for the day and I batch post it to the GL in one daily batch. Or you can choose to have each individual transaction posted to the GL the way QuickBooks does. So when I'm looking at my GL details, every transaction is there. Okay, so that gives it a QuickBooks-ish feel. You can also bypass the need to save a transactions to the accounts payable subledger as an example, and use an automation. So that's what we're going to talk about here. And that automation, you can say, okay, automatically post it to the GL without needing me to have an extra step of approvals or without needing me to release the transaction. Release it for me automatically on save, which is what QuickBooks does, right? So you have those choices. And that's one of the reasons that I like Acumatica best. You can build in the complexity when you're ready for it, when your team's grown large enough and you need it, or you can create efficiencies if your team does not require those multiple steps in the posting process. So some of the automations we've created for customers have included things like when a sales order is shipped, automatically create the invoice. Or when a sales order hits a particular stage, right? Maybe it hits like approved, automatically create the purchase order or the pre-purchase order, the requisition request, which is something that they have in Acumatica. So we're going to look at not needing to have multiple steps in entering bills to processing them, giving Acumatica a more QuickBooks-ish feel. So I'm going to go ahead and click into payables here. So I'm on payables, my quick menu for payables. And you can see I have my different processes, right? I have my profiles, which are my lists, my transactions, which are self-explanatory. Then I have my processes. So release AP documents is one of the processes that I can go in and do en masse. So when I click into here, I can go in, right, and select one individually and release. I can open up the transaction and choose that release drop down, that release button on the top of the transaction that we saw before. I can mass select all, release all, right? So that's all manual. Or I can come in here and add an automation. So in the automations, we set up an automation schedule. So you can give it a description, right? What are we doing? And we're taking from the screen release AP documents, and we're going to release all. When is this going to start? When does it end? Is it only for certain branches? What's the schedule? So daily, weekly, monthly. When does it start and end? And then what are the conditions, right? So maybe I only release certain. So if I look at my field name here, I can say only certain types, right? So all bills get released, but not voided checks don't get released, or prepayments don't get released automatically because I want to review them first. So very simple to set up an automation, very user-friendly to set up an automation. You don't have to call somebody necessarily to do this for you if you decide it's right for your business. Okay. Another automation that we have, so if I click into the sales orders here, and I open up a particular sales order, one of the automations we have too is around notification automation. So this is another one. I get asked this all the time. I want a notification in QuickBooks if X happens. I want somebody to send an email. I want a pop-up. I want whatever it is, right? So in Acumatica, they have these notifications built in, and it's a very similar process. So if I click on notifications, so I'm just on a transaction here, and if I click on notifications, I'm going to look at one of the existing ones that we have. So this notification is saying if the sales order, right, goes to back order, then go in and send this email automatically out to the purchasing manager that we need, you know, PO required to fulfill the back order. So there's different, here's the message. And again, you can see it's very easy to add, right, details from the documents itself there. We can have the conditions. So when the status equals back order, right, then do this, send this out. Who's it going to, and then what fields are we looking at to conditionally, right, choose from. So again, very simple, very easy to set it up, and then that notice can go out automatically.
Hey Marjorie, I just wanted to jump in. We just want to make sure we get to all of our polls.
Yep.
We still do have 2 polls. Just wanted to let the audience know.
Yep, I'm going to do another one right now. So which poll or which feature so far, I guess you haven't seen the closing financial, resonate with you the most for your company or your clients? Let me go ahead and launch that. The closing financial, I have a feeling that that's not as exciting for other people, but it looks like actually it is. Awesome. This last piece I knew I'd be rushing through, so I'll just show it to you before hopping back over to the PowerPoint. So in QuickBooks, right, when we close a period, it's closed. Everything's closed. There's no closing and locking. There's no closing by module. There's no, it's, you know, it's open or it's closed. It's pretty limited there. In Acumatica, it's going to be a little bit different. You can go in and choose to close each individual module, or you can choose to lock periods, open periods. So there's a lot of different options that we can show. So let me go ahead and close the poll and share. So it looks like a lot of intercompanies, really well spread out. Your automation looks like a lot of people excited about that, some approvals, and then closing financials, that's a lot higher than I expected. So let me go ahead and show that. So in Acumatica, in product here, let me type in. So when we go into our security here, so we can type in close financial periods. So we have a whole bunch of different processes. You can close your accounts payable, you can close your accounts receivable, you can close your inventory here. And we can go into each individual module, as I was saying. So let me type in, sorry, whoops. Let me type in periods here. I don't know that I'm gonna have to show you guys this. When it comes to security as well, one of the biggest questions that we get asked from our QuickBooks users is for us to be able to segment and say, like, my sales reps only have access to their own sales customers, their own transactions for their customers. So that is something that we can set up in Acumatica. I don't have time to show it. We can also set up things like at the field level. So you can say that they have access to view this field, but maybe they can't edit this field on a transaction, or maybe they can't see this field at all, right? Maybe just certain people can see this field and not all people. Another way that we use that a lot is that in the warehouse space, so maybe a warehouse user, you want them only to see transactions related to their warehouse, or maybe when they enter transactions, it is automatically defaulting to their warehouse and they can only enter against their own warehouse. So there are some of the ways that we've seen the security used when people are moving up from QuickBooks into Acumatica. So I apologize, I can't run through this last piece here. It was just a little bit. What I'll do is I'll make sure to share a screenshot out to you guys of what it looks like when you're closing a period. Let me go ahead and launch the last poll here. So what was the most valuable part of today? And then while I am launching that, let me go through a couple of questions. Okay, so can you import electronically sales orders, shipments from outside warehouse reports? So yes, there is an import feature in Acumatica. So you can, on any transaction, there's a little Excel button where you can export the transaction to Excel, or you can import from Excel right there on the transaction screen. There's also, you can set up imports to happen, right? So like it's kind of like a Transaction Pro importer. If you guys have ever used that with QuickBooks, it's built-in product. So you can set up the mapping for importing transactions. Okay. Can you, so batch processing only shows batch totals in GL? Was a question. So if you do batches, yeah, you would just see batch totals if you choose that. But you have the choice to also do individual transactions posted to the GL. So having that choice is nice. Can you help set up automation for new clients? Yes, absolutely. We can help set up automations for new clients. We do, but what I like to show here is that, if clients feel so inclined, they can do it. If I can do it, I'm not programming, I'm not an implementer necessarily for Acumatica myself on all of it, right? The behind the scenes stuff, then anybody can really do it. Let's see, is this a good ERP for distribution? So yeah, it was built for distribution initially. So let me go ahead and close this poll and share it. And then hop back in. So I'll let you take over. I'll just put my contact information up here in case anybody has more questions, but any other questions that come in, I will make sure to follow up after this webinar.
Marjorie, thank you so much. Always fantastic having you on our platform. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer all these questions as well. We really appreciate it, and I know our attendees do as well.
Thank you.
To our audience, thank you so much for attending. Thank you again to Fourlane for presenting today. We'll do our best to get your CPE processed a little later today. You should see it in your account by tomorrow. We also recorded the session, so if you want to review, we will send you that link in the post-webinar email. Thanks so much, everyone. Hope to see you all at future webinars.